You said, but Imam, you said that you were once part of his community. Why did you leave? I credit Imam Warathuddin Muhammad for turning my heart to the Quran. I remember one of the teachers that he brought to us was Sheikh Jafar Idris from Sudan. And one day we were in Harlem, and about 25 of his imams were there, and Sheikh Jafar recited some verses from the Quran, maybe 10 or 12 verses. And we taped it. And that was my first experience of hearing the Quran. You can hear my words on the tape saying that's the most beautiful thing that I've ever heard in my life. I have to learn that. And it was there that I began to learn to love the Quran. Imam Muhammad pointed my heart to the Quran to such a degree that I love the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, so much that I had a nickname in the community of Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. They said Imam Siraj Wahhaj, the Sunni Muslim Imam in the world community of Islam in the West. That was my nickname. And I learned and I loved the Quran. And as I began to read the Quran and to love the Quran and love Allah and love the Messenger, I began to see what I thought was contradictions. So I would write Imam Warathuddin Muhammad, I wrote him letters, and I wrote him a 30-page letter, not in any mean-spirited way, asking my teacher, help me to understand this. 1978, some of the imams of Imam Warathuddin Muhammad was blessed to go to Naperville, Illinois for a 40-day imam training program. There were 100 imams there. I was blessed to be one of 5 to be chosen to continue my imam training in Mecca. And I went to my leader, Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. I said, Imam, I was chosen to go to Mecca to study. I was his imam over a masjid in Brooklyn, Masjid Muhammad, Masjid 7C. And I said, Imam, I would love to go. If you tell me that I can't go, I won't go. But I want to go. I really want to go. And Imam Muhammad said, go ahead. When I went to Mecca, Allah blessed me. It was a life-altering experience. It changed my life. I learned so much. I grew so much. Loved the Quran. And as I was there in Mecca, I was thinking about going back, when I go back to America, how I was going to work harder for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then I noticed this. When I would prepare my khutbahs for Friday, I would write verses from the Quran and Hadith, and then I said, I have to say something about Imam Muhammad. I noticed that I was drifting away from the teachings of Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. I'm not saying anything bad about him, but where my heart was Quran and Sunnah. That's what I wanted. I didn't want nothing else. And then I began to teach everything that I learned in Mecca, I taught there in the masjid. And then I noticed that there was beginning to be a division in the masjid. I noticed it. Therefore, I called Chicago and I said, I have to speak to Imam Muhammad. I have to come there to Chicago to speak to Imam Muhammad. And the secretary told me that Imam can't see you this week. I called back and said that please let the Imam know that I'm coming to Chicago and I will not leave until I see the Imam. He called me back and said the Imam said he will see you Friday. That Friday, I'll never forget, Imam Warathuddin Muhammad did the Jummah khutbah in Chicago. And after the khutbah, he saw me in his office and I said, Imam, I thank you for everything that you've done for me. You put me on the right path. But I have divided your community. I am responsible for have divided your community, for I'm not teaching your teachings. He said, well, what is it, Imam? And I began to tell the Imam the differences, how I understood the Quran and Sunnah. I won't go into details. But he told me, Imam, it's okay. You can have these differences and still be my Imam. And I said, Imam, I can't. I don't have the conviction to do it. So Imam Muhammad, I said, how should I do it? He said, well, you go to the community and you let them know. Do it in a good way. And then he came to New York. The day that I resigned, he was there and he spoke. I spoke and he spoke. And he said, some of you thought that you would have a fight here. But I'm letting you know that Imam Siraj has done an honorable thing. What he has done is honorable. There were some people there, many people, it's taped. And then that day, it just so happened to be July 4th weekend. And the first of Ramadan, all in one.